So the purpose of today's video is to shed some light on the spectrum of versions within our performance system. Across our performance level system, we have 6 levels. Each level, so to speak, represents a different circuit design, a different model. So if one goes with our phono, the LPU1 phono, it's one circuit design. And then if one goes to the LPU3, LPU4, LPU5, the circuit design gradually evolves. So it's a different circuit design using different parts. And the parts and the materials and components, they come into the equation when we move from level 3 onwards, where we have signal output transformers. When we have signal output transformers, we have then the variety, the luxury of having different materials that we can use, like the conductor material in the windings, like silver and copper, and a different quality of cores. It's the same model, same circuit design, but the materials and components in that version differ across. From the level 3 onwards, like for example DAC3 or LPU3, one has the choice to choose a different conductor inside the output transformer and different quality of the core of the output transformer. And that defines the version. For example, so a line preamplifier, pre3, can be ordered with a single conductor type copper on the primary and secondary winding with a very basic M4, M6 silicon steel laminations. It's EI core, and that's our basic version. It's just called pre3. As we move on, we can offer the same transformer with different materials and change the quality of the core, moving to the silicon steel of higher grade, which is called super high B, M0 laminations. They are thinner, more transparent, and we can keep the copper. So we can have copper and copper, and that would be our special version, where we have double C core output transformers, copper and copper wound. And if we add a bit of silver on the secondary windings of the output transformers, we get the classic version. And if we move completely into silver primary and silver secondary, that's our signature version. So basically, by moving from a very standard silicon steel M4, M6 laminations to M0 double C core gives an improvement in transparency already, but when we start changing and adding a bit silver to the windings of these transformers, it improves harmonic richness. We get more color in the overtones and higher frequencies, and we see more timbral contrasts. That is basically, if anybody looked in our other video, which we have as well on this channel, that is the video silver versus copper. We try to exemplify and illustrate the differences between silver and copper sound. Copper gives a certain, as a material, gives certain characteristics, and those who are familiar with copper sound understand that copper gives always a sort of more monochrome presentation. It's monochrome, it's black and white. It is also very warm sounding, and it's very sort of mellow. And if we start comparing it to silver, silver does exactly the opposite. It adds color, so we have a more colorful harmonic presentation, it's harmonically richer, but it adds a bit of a coldness to it, and it's less fuller bodied in comparison to copper. Once we add more silver into our output transformers, we obviously will have to bring even more body through other materials and parts so that we have a full-bodied presentation as well. The difference between copper and silver is, if we can simplify it in a few words, it would be copper is a more monochrome presentation of harmonics, so it's more black and white, and silver is a colorful presentation, so you have a lot of details, much more sort of information in the harmonics. Now the question is, which one is better? In order to answer this question, I would ask a counter question. When you watch movies, which sort of movies do you prefer? Black and white or color? It goes without saying that both sort of movies have their validity and have a different style. I would say the difference between these versions is mainly in the color, presentation of color. If we move from sort of standard special, which is copper, all copper signal output transformers, we have the timeless black and white, and if we move to silver, then we have the full sort of color, and the classic version in between, that would be sort of the grayscale in between. You have a little bit of both materials. You have a little bit more color, but you have also the dynamic contrasts in terms of black and white. So this is sort of a best of both worlds. Whether there's more color or less color, that we leave our customer to decide. That heavily depends on the preference and what the rest of the system is. If this system is already very colorful, I would suggest let's go classic monochrome. You don't need more. If the system is very monochrome and it needs a little bit of color, then I would suggest let's go for the classic or signature version, which is always a value added to the musical presentation. If we have a little bit richer overtones, especially orchestral music, voice, vocals, that helps to the recordings and the playback of music. In systems that are already extremely revealing, that is not a value added in my view, because you already have a very revealing system. What else you would like to reveal? The imperfections of the recording or imperfections of the materials. There is hardly any value added if you already have extremely colorful presentation. Again, I sum up everything that performance level system pretty much tells you which circuit design, which model is going to be. That's our level system, unlike other companies that, for example, use the same circuit design and then basically slap a bit more silver here and there and then make a different performance level out of it. We don't do anything like this. We don't stretch two other performance level on top just because we have a little bit more silver in that particular model. No, our model is basically the level. That's how we are different from anybody else. Our level is the circuit design. It's always driven by the circuit design. Everything that I just said, that applies to almost every product, level 3 onwards. When you have this sort of choice, you can custom tailor anything that would enrich and enhance the sound quality of your system. A great example would be our step-up transformers. We have SUT1, SUT2, SUT3. Essentially, that would be our different versions. It's the same mu metal core, so an 80% nickel content, so very super transparent, crystal clear sounding core. The difference is between SUT1 and SUT3 is the amount of copper and silver, basically. And SUT2 is in between. So we offer match completely custom-made, custom-wound SUTs. So if the cartridge has internal resistance, output impedance of say 10 ohms, we're going to wind you a perfect match to that particular cartridge to get the best possible outcome. That's paramount. Otherwise, we will lose energy. And here we have the sort of the choice: copper, silver, or copper and silver. The rest of the customer system has all silver wiring, so silver cabling. Inside the tone arm and phono preamplifiers also contains a lot of silver materials, and so it's a lot of silver interconnects in the system. Then I would say choose either SUT1 or SUT2, where you have a little bit of copper. If, on the other hand, a person has all sort of copper, I would highly recommend that he goes for the SUT2 or SUT3, because then we have addition of silver, and silver is going to enrich or harmonize, bring a bit more synergy into the rest of the chain of that particular system. A product that contains silver conductors is always going to be higher due to the cost of the material of silver. The preference is left to the customer. What the customer needs to understand that our higher performance level, say a Pre-4, we're using larger tubes. And larger tubes offer a more holographic, a larger, more substantial presentation than the smaller tubes. That we leave to the customer to decide whether he wants to have a larger, more monochrome sound in case of the Pre-4, or he wants to have a more refined, more harmonically rich, more colorful sound, say of the Pre-3 Classic or Signature. So what I just mentioned about our line preamplifiers pretty much applies to any other product category. That's why we have a model, which is the level, and we have the version, which is basically the presentation, the color, the flavor of that model. All of this, what I'm saying here, should be taken into consideration when making a choice, because it all depends on the already existing system of a customer. We leave it to the customer to decide, and we are very happy to offer advice and help you.